It's August. What is still yet to come for the Pacers in the offseason? Free agency looking like it's over / winding down, but there's still stuff to come for the Pacers. There's still stuff they can do, and we'll break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, and today, hello from the distant past. I've pre-recorded this whole week of episodes because I am far from Indiana. So if any news has happened and you're wondering, Tony, why aren't you talking about that? That's why today, it's my favorite August tradition, the first Monday of August. We look at the offseason the Pacers still have coming, and then don't talk about any transactions until something actually happens. So today we're going to run through what's still left on the checklist for the Pacers and what's changed from the last time we talked about those things. They've figured out their two ways. They've signed players. All that has happened in the interim since we last did this. I talked about how Miles Turner impacted a lot of this stuff. Now they've done more sense, right? So we'll run through all that today, put a bow on the offseason to this point, put a bow on what's to come the rest of the summer, and then as moves happen, we'll talk about them, but no need to really dive in to any non-changing circumstances the rest of the way. The key thing to start with, though, is this is just very blanket, generic thing to talk about is right now, they have 15 players. That is a legal roster, right? Technically, they can say they have a roster spot because Tony Bradley's non-guaranteed. Also, technically, they could say they have a roster spot because in the offseason, you can carry 21 players. So at any moment, they could sign anybody, right? Like that is a part of this that's like not a part of a checklist in terms of like this is a deadline by then or this can't happen until that time. But keep that in mind. Like if you think the Pacers should try to sign a specific free agent, if you think they should try to trade, they could still do that at any time. Trades in August are pretty rare. There's probably like one or two per year. This is the quietest month for players and execs and coaches in the league as well. But that is always still possible. All right. I can't just speculate on, I could say that they might need another point guard. I've said that all offseason. They have a case to make for keeping four centers, right? Who knows what they'll actually do. But it feels like their serious part of the roster is pretty settled. All the premier players, to the extent that there are any left at this point of the offseason, don't really make sense for the Pacers. They can always sign or trade anybody. That is, of course, possible, but that doesn't really cover what today is about, which is what is actually going to be something the Pacers have to either consider or do the rest of this exact offseason up through whenever their first game is, October 20, whatever that would be, first, second, third. So let's run through those things today. And the top line item, as it was even maybe before the offseason started in some ways, is extensions, right? 2 extension-eligible players the rest of this summer. One is Bennedict Mathurin, who will come up later this week on a mailbag episode, who is rookie extension eligible. The other one is Nesmith, who is veteran extension eligible. Mathurin is extension eligible only during the offseason. That's why this is so important. 2 days before the season starts is the final day for a Bennedict Mathurin veteran extension. Nesmith is extension eligible from October 1st until the season starts. So another small window there. Obviously, they could talk about things with Nesmith now. He just couldn't sign anything for 2 months. It's just how the calendar works. But the reason these are off-season items specifically is once the season starts, it's over. There is no mid-season extension possible for any Pacers players this year, which has not been the case for them basically in any past season. They've always had like one guy who it's on the table for. So that's why they have to consider all these things right now, right? Do they want to do it? What's the right price? And so let's start with Mathurin, who's the big one. And I'll talk about a lot of this stuff in maybe a little bit more detail on the mailbag later this week. But I think Mathurin and the Pacers right now, honestly, if they even wanted to explore an extension, which I've argued both sides might not want to, and I'll explain that again, they are probably looking around and seeing if any deals happen and to what level those deals happen for the currently restricted free agents. I'm recording this probably 4 days before this episode will come out, maybe 5. And so maybe these players have signed by then. There's a lot of Kuminga talk today, right? Cam Thomas keeps getting brought up. Obviously, Josh Giddey, Quentin Grimes. Like, those kind of players are good starters. Like, that would be, in theory, where Ben Mathurin would hope he would be a year from now, or could be a year from now, or even in some fans' eyes is right now, right? what do those players get? The non-stars, in some cases, they might have all-star potential players, but clearly good, right? That's the hardest spot to be because you're expensive enough that other teams often don't have the resources to give you the necessary contract and restricted free agency. But your own team knows that and can use it to, negotiate. And so you don't want to be restricted free agent if you don't have to. So where those prices land, I think could be very telling for Ben Mathurin and what his free agency outlook could look like a year from now, because it's hard to come up with a contract comp for him. Like Kuminga's a decent one, honestly, maybe, of like a good player who maybe doesn't fit perfect on their current team, but is clearly talented. Or you go more with the traditional like young guard who can really score types, like Jalen Green's probably the rosiest contract outlook Ben Mathurin could hope for, all that kind of stuff, right? It's hard to find the perfect evidence right now of like what Ben Mathurin should want, what the Pacers should be offering. Just a high level reason to say this, like the Pacers probably don't know what they hope Ben Mathurin. I mean, they hope he's awesome. They hope he's the best player that he could possibly be, right? But they don't really know what like the right role is going to be for him a year from now. When Haliburton comes back, is Mathurin a sixth man again? Is he starting? Is he replacing someone else? It's hard for them to pay him not knowing what he'll mean to their team and their salary cap situation, right? The Pacers next year, right now, have about $181 million in guaranteed salaries on their books. If you include picking up team options for Shepherd and Walker, which we'll talk about that later in this episode, that's $26 million from the tax, with no Mathurin, with no Wiseman, and with no Tony Bradley, right? So that's doable. They could stay under the tax and do that, but then they'd have no room to add a center if they wanted to, or it'd be hard to add other players. I'm not saying that this is a problem. Their financial situation is more clear now with Miles Turner having departed, but just to keep in mind, like that's probably a hard limit for the Pacers right now would be, that distance from the tax that they would be next year of $26 million per year or in the first year. And I think that'd be too high anyway. So they might want more information on how good they probably want to know every single thing possible about how good Ben Mathurin could be, how much he fits. And even then, if he plays awesome this year without Haliburton, what does that mean for how awesome he'd be with Haliburton, right? And if you're Ben Mathurin, you probably want another year to say, look, here's what I can do if given more opportunity, more chances in bigger roles, even if it is a different style, like him playing well only helps him get paid, whether that's from the Pacers or somewhere else. Sign and trades with guys coming off rookie deals are really hard. People keep saying that. Well, Ben Mathurin could just go ball out and the Pacers could sign and trade him. You run into something called base year compensation, which I'm not going to talk about too much right now. I don't want to get too in the weeds on something that wouldn't matter until a year from now. But it's hard to functionally trade players, young players specifically coming off rookie deals, to another team via sign and trade, unless it's in straight up into cap space and like take back the right value back. That's a challenge I think that the Warriors are running into with Kuminga in terms of what money they would take back from another team. And so, but if you're Mathurin still, like you want to ball out, you want to get paid as much as possible. If he has a great year, that would only help his value, obviously. So it's hard for him to want extension because his value right now is probably not particularly high in terms of per year annual value for the Pacers specifically, the only team that can extend him right now. So he can stand to make more if he plays well. The Pacers probably don't want to commit to anything without knowing as much as possible about a player who has been great at times and doesn't fit perfectly at other times. And again, commenters coming. Stop talking about the fit narrative. It's not a narrative. The Pacers have said this, right? And so, I think in tandem, it seems like both sides would probably not want an extension, right? Both sides probably want more info about where this could go. And so I would not expect one to happen. I think they could talk about it, see where like the walkaway number is for both sides. Maybe there's a way it happens, but if he takes the extension, he's harder to trade all season too. And like the Pacers would probably like him to be tradable this season, even though his value could change quite a bit throughout the season if he plays well or doesn't, just given that every team would know he's about to take a pay raise coming next season. So this seems like no extension written all over it to me. It's not the same, but it's a little bit like Obi Toppin 2 years ago, where they traded for Obi and he was extension eligible. It's like, well, the Pacers want to know. Like, they want to know what Obi Toppin's going to be on their team and how well he fits. And if it goes well, they could pay him. And guess what happened? He played well, and they paid him in restricted free agency. Like, if Ben Mathurin plays well, they should want to pay him. And if he doesn't, and there's the same questions that we've asked every year about his fit with this team, then it might lead to different conversations. So it's a line item there. Ben Mathurin extension, probably the biggest thing for them to consider. I personally do not think it makes sense for either side right now. That does not mean I don't think he should be on the team. I think he should start for the team. That does not mean I don't think he's good. That does not mean I don't think long-term the Pacers' highest ceiling is with Bennedict Mathurin on the team playing well. It probably is. I think all those things are true. Let me be clear. I'm just talking contractually. I don't think it makes good sense for either side to have that happen right now, unless Mathurin is willing to take less than what I would consider a good contract for him right now, or the Pacers are much more bullish on him than it seems like the market is for players like him. Aaron Nesmith is also extension eligible. There's a lot more to get to on the stuff that could still come for the Pacers this offseason. On today's Locked On Pacers, it's all coming up next here. Before we do any of that, we got to talk about FanDuel. Summer sports in full swing. Whether you're all about the baseball under the lights, the golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. So many people love FanDuel as a way to track their favorite matchups, right? The app keeps it fresh. There's new daily promotions. There's fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, too. They pay out quickly. Even regular season games become must-watch events when you are participating on FanDuel. Whether you're placing a same-game parlay or watching a bet right into the ninth inning, FanDuel makes it feel like you are a part of the action. If you're new to FanDuel, perfect timing. New customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making us your first listen today and every single day your second listen. I have no idea if any huge news has happened in the NBA recently, but check out the team show of whatever big news has happened. Maybe Kuminga or some of these restricted guys have signed. Maybe the Pacers did something big and you're missing it here, and I'm sorry. I'll be back in a week. If something huge happens, I'll bring my gear to where I'm going. But whatever Locked On show covers the team that did a big event, we have one. We have one for every single NBA team. Let's continue here in Pacerland on the rest of the Pacers offseason. Mathurin extension is something that could happen. I don't see it happening. Aaron Nesmith also becomes, technically he can't sign it till October 1st. He's extension eligible this offseason, though. They could talk about it now, figure it out, whatever. Aaron Nesmith eligible for, I believe, I'm guessing a little bit on the estimated league average salary, but I believe a 3-year extension at about $63 million. That would not, so here's the difference between Nesmith and Mathurin, is that Nesmith still has 2 years left on his current deal, and those would remain even if he signs an extension. They're guaranteed seasons. So his extension would not start, and the one I just described, until 2027-28, and his cap hold's already about $20.9 million. This would replace that with about that same salary, and that year, currently, they're projected to be pretty dang far from the tax, depending on what happens with McConnell and Nesmith going into free agency and Jarris Walker and Ben Shepherd and lots of other guys. They could, in theory, be a cap space team that year. I sort of doubt it. And if they become a cap space team, they would have a really bare roster. Regardless, I previously said this offseason that I think if I was advising Aaron Nesmith, I would tell him not to take that. That's the most the Pacers could offer. 3 for, I'm again estimating a little bit, but $63 million-ish. Okay. Here's the thing. Since I said that, one thing happened, and that is that Herb Jones signed a 3-year, $69 million extension. And Herb Jones is pretty good. Like, he's in that Aaron Nesmith ability level, if not a little bit better. If he's better and got 3 for $69 in an extension, is that a fair value for Aaron Nesmith? Is like a little over $20 million a year? That's like solid starter, high-end bench player money. Maybe that actually is on the table, right? Maybe I was too over the top about I wouldn't take it if I were him. And I said the same thing about Andrew Nembhard last year. His max extension, I said if I were advising Andrew Nembhard, I would tell him not to take it, and he did. So that's part of it. The other reason I'd said that, though, is like the mid-level exception that year's going to start like it in the high teens. Like, he could get that from another team. It's not like he'd be missing out on so much money and opportunity, potentially. That's if he stays this good. That's the other part of this. I was talking to someone else about this, is that their point to me that I've said a few times is Aaron Nesmith's clearly good. He's going to start for the Pacers this year. He's still young. They should want to have him for a while. Is his stock going to look any different in a season without Haliburton, right? How much different will everybody walk out of this season, feeling about Aaron Nesmith? And that was a good point, which matters because Aaron Nesmith is once again extension eligible next offseason and into the season next year. So like maybe he would want to wait a year, and if he balls out, he could get like 4 for $80 at that time, which is just adding another year on about the same contract. Maybe that's something he'd be more interested in. It'd be like 4 for $85, actually, more specifically. So like, I guess maybe that's something he could think about. The first 3 years would be about the same value. So no real change in timing element for him there, right? It's just adding the other year. And if he plays really well and the Pacers are willing to do that, I guess that is preferred for him. But like, there's a chance next year we're talking about this, like, well, he's not maybe worth that. Or like the thought about him is a little different. Now, obviously, to have another season playing with Haliburton, presumably to rebuild his value at that point before going into unrestricted free agency, but the Pacers might want to extend him during that season, which would be allowed 2 seasons from now. There's a lot of time for these sides to figure it out, which is why it's not like imperative that they rush to this now. The Pacers extended McConnell last summer, right? That was before his final year of his deal. They extended Malcolm Brogdon with 2 years left on his veteran deal. Like, they've gotten ahead of these before. And the goal is always, if the extension makes them as or more tradable than they currently are, it's fine to do. And I don't think Aaron Nesmith, even across, if he signs a 3-year extension, then he's under contract for 5 years. That carries him to age, what is that? What are they, 31, 30? Like, yeah, he's 25 right now. He turns 26 basically on opening night. Like, that, I don't think he's going to decline in that. And I don't think that's an overpay for him at all. So having more team control generally helps your trade value. If anything, it just keeps it neutral. But I think he's worth that deal. Like I said, I'd advise him not to take it. But there has been 2 things that have happened. A conversation I had with someone else is just a conversation. But something that actually happened with Herb Jones signing that extension that makes me think maybe this does make sense. Maybe this is something that Nesmith and the Pacers could agree on. The difference with Mathurin is uncapped. His could go up to his max. Nesmith's extension is capped at a specific value where negotiations have to fit in that. It could be less years. It could be less dollars. Who knows? But that is something else for the Pacers to consider. I think when October comes, I'll do another deep dive into this in Mathurin extensions, like closer to the season, once both are officially able to sign it. But that is probably the most plausible big thing that the Pacers could still do this offseason, is an extension for Aaron Nesmith. Another couple things to talk about here. One is team options, rookie scale team options. You guys hear about this all the time. So when you sign a rookie contract, you get if you're drafted in the first round, and you sign a rookie contract, it's a 4-year deal. The third and fourth year are covered by team options, but they have to be decided on a full year in advance, right? So for example, Jarris Walker, right? First round pick heading in 2023. So he signs a rookie scale deal that's 4 years and like $27.5 million. The first 2 years are guaranteed. Then the third year, which is the coming season, is covered by a team option. But the Pacers have to decide on that third-year option before Walker's second season. And then the 2026-27 season, the fourth year, is also a team option. The Pacers have to decide on that one before his third season. So that's right now. And they picked 2 players in the first round in 2023. Jarris was one of them. Ben Shepherd was the other. So they both have team options covering the 2026-27 season. So not the current coming season, but the one after that the Pacers have to decide on. I don't even think I have to explain this. This is extremely easy. They should pick up both of them for 2 reasons. One is that they're actually just worth the deal, right? $8.47 million is Jarris Walker's 4th-year rookie scale deal. Even if you view that as overpay for his current contributions, I don't. You're paying for the potential there too, and obviously worth it to keep trying to develop somebody like Jarris Walker, who could be super valuable given his skill set and player archetype, right? That's of course worth it to pay him that much to continue to develop him. No brainer, they'll pick that one up. Ben Shepherd's 4th-year team option is for $5 million. Rotation players, especially young ones that can continue to get better, cost $5 million. Again, a no-brainer. Even just on production, Walker and Shepherd for a combined $13.5 million 2 years from now is easy. You would do that 100 times out of 100 as the Pacers. They're beyond the thing I'm about to say. There's no reason for them to even consider declining these. The thing you run into if you do decline a team option like this is you can re-sign the player come that time, but the team that declines it or has that player under contract cannot exceed that value, right? The Pacers ran into that with Jalen Smith, where the Suns declined Jalen Smith's team option, and then he got traded to the Pacers. So the Pacers could not pay him more than what that team option would have offered, while other teams could have. So if the Pacers turned down, for example, Ben Shepherd's 4th-year option, and then he has an awesome season, the Pacers could not pay him more than that $5 million, but every other team could. It's more reason to want to pick it up. The other reason, so Jake LaRavia, for example, just got more money from the Lakers than the Kings could have legally offered him for that exact reason. The other part of this is the Pacers are already over the cap next season, right? In theory, they could use their mid-level to sign about $13.5 million of contracts, but the Pacers could still have their mid-level. Like they don't have another way to sign a $5 million player and an $8.5 million player. and the only resource they would have anyway. It's not like cap space where you're getting something more or more flexibility by declining these options. Usually if you're over the cap, even if it's close with a rookie scale guy, you just keep him. The difference is in this case, it's not even close. You'd keep him anyway. So that will come at some point. You'll get a press release from the Pacers. They've picked up those or exercised those rookie scale options. It's a no-brainer. There's no, I mean, they don't even have to have a meeting. They all just know, right? It's just basic team building intuition. Couple more little things to talk about with this Pacers offseason, all coming up here to close out today's Locked On Pacers. We're back here on Locked On Pacers. Thanks for making this your first listen today and every single day. Your second listen, Locked On NBA, the latest and greatest from around the league on game night and the standard show every single day. Later this month, I'm on every Wednesday. And later this month, when Eurobasket starts, real games with NBA players to talk about. Afrobasket starts on like the 11th or something, the 12th. Siakam's not playing in it. Cameroon is. But that'll be fun. Like real games with NBA players coming up very soon. Locked On NBA has the latest from around the league and around the action around the world featuring NBA players. A little sad to me. Eurobasket, Afrobasket, all this. No Pacers. There's always something, right? Buddy Hield's playing for the Bahamas, or O'Shea's with Canada, or Daniel Tice's with Germany. That's beyond Team USA. I love watching that stuff. You see players in different contexts, learn a lot about them. They have none this year. Quite a bummer. Okay, let's finish this up. A little bit of the rerun, or a little bit of a refresher on the smaller things that will be coming for the Pacers this offseason. Here comes the Bradley non-guaranteed contract discussion again. I just talked about this last Thursday on the Veteran Questions podcast. In theory, James Wiseman also has a partial guarantee of $1 million. They just signed him, right? I don't think they would sign him and then just cut him and just eat the $1 million. It's possible, but I think that's more about in-season flexibility. Tony Bradley, they signed last season, and he makes more than his minimum, but it's completely non-guaranteed. If they waive both of those guys, they could save, I'm doing math really quickly, like $4.5 million for what? Like they wouldn't get under any sort of threshold or anything like that. They'd still have the same exceptions available to them. I guess it would allow them to spend more of their mid-level instead of the tax, but Wiseman is not relevant really to this discussion. I think that he's like cutting him would not be worth $1.6 million of savings unless something drastic happened or he gets hurt. Bradley, though, is he worth $2.9 million? It's barely over his minimum. Does it really matter when it's just prorated every day? They could cut him in December and get savings at that time. I think they should think about having four centers on the team. The discussion with him is less about Tony Bradley specifically, right? It seems like they would like to have him in for training camp. That just makes logical sense, even if he's not going to be on the opening night roster. Like, let him compete for it, see if they need four centers. And if they do, great, they have one on the team. Even then, they could waive him right before the season, let him clear waivers, then re-sign him to his minimum, also non-guaranteed. That would stink for Bradley. He'd make less money. But, like, to be clear, agents aren't stupid. Like, these guys know their situations. If he gets on a roster, that's great for him. So we'll see what happens with Tony Bradley. He's still just kind of like a floating transaction, right? Could he be traded and have part of his money guaranteed? Could he just be waived straight up and then brought back on a cheaper deal? Could he just be on the team on this deal? It's non-guaranteed. It's cheap. Who cares? They can figure it out later in the season. There's a lot of paths that could go. With the current information that we know, I don't think any of them are wrong. If someone else is signed and comes into camp and is better than him, if someone else gets hurt, who knows? There are many reasons why he could be worth, like, things could change, and you have the guy, you have the rights. Why not, right? If you have the rights, keep him, figure it out, wait till the last possible second to make a decision with all the information possible. So Tony Bradley is a contract decision that will drag later on to the offseason. As I mentioned before, when I was talking about his team option before the offseason, I forgot his deal was non-guaranteed when I talked about that being an easy decline, but easy peasy. They could still just re-sign him on a cheaper deal at some point, and the flexibility of a non-guaranteed deal is very nice. Again, Wiseman is $1 million guaranteed. That's not a lot of flexibility on a $2.6 million deal. Alas, such is life for James Wiseman. He made the team last year with a very similar contract structure and just happened to get hurt. That's really it for the on the roster guys stuff that the Pacers have to consider that has real deadlines, right? Bradley's deal starts counting against the cap on opening night. Same with Wiseman's. 2 days before the season for Mathurin. Basically the same time frame for Nesmith. October is the time when a lot of this stuff will become relevant. The rookie scale team options for Walker and Shepherd, I forgot to say this, the deadline for those decisions is actually Halloween. So the season can start and a few games can be played. I only remember one time ever where a team took the decision into the season and then actually had real games change what I would consider their decision. That was Nick Stauskas with the Sixers. I think it was his fourth-year option, and he was balling to start the season. He gets his fourth-year option picked up and then didn't really ball ever again, and his career kept going. It wasn't like so detrimental for him or the Sixers, but that's the only time I can remember the games actually changing the situation a lot. But I don't think with Walker or Shepherd, outside of catastrophic injury, that they would even take it into the season, figure it out before the season starts. So that's the stuff with guys on the roster to keep your eye on for the rest of the offseason. Miles Turner certainly changed the Tony Bradley outlook and a little bit of the extension outlook, because the Pacers do have the flexibility to keep Mathurin and duck the tax in future seasons. But everything else is pretty much the same as it was before the season started. Nesmith's outlook is the same. The rookie scale options are the same. The other stuff the Pacers can do, I kind of mentioned this when I talked at the beginning about at any time, free agency signings are just possible, right? When this episode comes out, it'll be like August 3rd or 4th. Like Cole Swider got signed later than that last year, right? He got his non-guaranteed one-year deal on like the 8th or something. Like that could always happen. But that's my segue to say Exhibit 10s are going to happen. I think some guys that were on the Summer League team, Samson Johnson, RJ Felton, off the top of my head, Steven Ashworth, I believe have committed to Exhibit 10s with the Pacers. So quick overview on those. Don't want to get too nitty gritty because it's not the most annoying thing. This is basically for the boom. So you sign with the Pacers technically on an Exhibit 10 contract, which is a 1-year fully non-guaranteed deal. They can be converted to a 2-way at any time. But once you've registered 1 day of practice in training camp with the Pacers, you can be waived. And then because of your Exhibit 10, the G League team that team you signed with now has your rights, right? So this is mostly relevant for players who are rookies, because that's how G League rights get acquired in this case. And then if they stay with that G League team for 60 days during the season, they get a bonus of like $80,000, just under that, right? So it's a good way for them to make more money, the Pacers to get the G League rights of decent players that they want to take a look at, and the players get more money. Like, it's just a win-win-win. So you'll see a lot of like, Pacers sign these 3 players, and like people be like, ooh, interesting, and then they get waived the next day, and people don't understand. That's why it's done. It's a boom thing. It's not a Pacers thing. Very, very rarely. I would say like 1 team per season, an Exhibit 10 guy actually makes the team or actually gets a 2-way, but they have to play really, really well for that to happen. Regardless, that is something to keep an eye on. Exhibit 10s are going to happen, and that will be it. That is the stuff for you to know and keep an eye on for the rest of the Pacers offseason. As moves happen, if they do, we'll break them all down right here on Locked On Pacers, unless they happen this week. If they're not a significant deal and they happen this week, I will be way, way out of Indiana and will not be able to jump on them. I'll have my mic if something huge happens. Thank you guys for listening today. We'll be back Wednesday. So it's August. We're going to do 5 days a week as much as I can throughout August. We're only going to do 3 days this week because I'm on vacation. So back Wednesday with part 1 of a 2-part mailbag. Hope you guys enjoyed this episode. You can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Tony Tyrese, this podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Locked On Pacers. Back tomorrow talking more Pacers. Till then, everybody have a wonderful day.